Can you imagine that someone inside Ferrari is sabotaging Hamilton from within the team? And that this decision comes from Maranello? Without the pilot or his engineer can avoid it. What you are about to listen, you will not believe it. The decision came from Maranello. An encrypted mail sent from the Remote Performance Center indicated a new settings package for Hamilton SF25. Settings that, in theory, would improve low-speed traction and stability in long curves such as the Hugenholtz curve. In practice, however, what was ordered was a complete modification of the mechanical behavior of the car. The height of the rear suspension was increased 4 millimeters. A difference that may seem small, but that in Formula One completely changes the center of dynamic gravity of the car. At the same time, the preload of the differential was reduced, modifying how the power between the rear wheels is transferred. In theory, these changes were looking for a softer output in acceleration. In reality, they completely disconnected the feedback that Hamilton had delivered during the previous sessions. The most alarming was not the technical decision itself. It was the process, or rather the absence of one. Neither Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's career engineer, nor were the pilot himself consulted. No one in the box was approved. The package was implemented from the Ferrari central database, activated by algorithms based on simulations that, although sophisticated, did not consider the real conditions of the asphalt, the evolution of the track, or, above all, the human sensations. What Hamilton found on the track the next day was not the same car. The SF25 no longer communicated what happened on the rear wheels. In Curve 3, one of the most demanding sectors of the Dutch layout, the car reacted erratically. The rear axle seemed to deliver asynchronous power. Telemetry would then reveal an unbalanced torque sequence. One side of the axis responded with more aggressiveness than the other at the maximum traction instant. It was like trying to run with one leg forward and the other towards the side. Hamilton himself described the experience as feeling that the car had two brains acting in opposite directions. That phrase not only summarizes the mechanical state of the car, but also the structural chaos within Ferrari. Two brains, one on the track trying to compete, adapt, and survive. Another in Maranello, operating in the abstraction of the data, disconnected from the engine noise, from the smell of burnt rubber, of the grain that accumulates in the tires after each stint. What should be a career to demonstrate progress became a brutal warning. Ferrari was not only failing on track. He was failing from within, from his operational nucleus, making decisions without a soul, without intuition, without listening to those who truly know the car. And this disconnection, as we will see later, was not an accident. It was a symptom of something much deeper. In Formula One, the relationship between the pilot and his career engineer is more than a technical issue. It is a trust alliance, a direct connection between the man who drives and who interprets, adjusts, and protects his machine in every thousandth of the second. Therefore, when Riccardo Adami, an engineer with more than 2 decades of experience and now works side by side with Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari, decided to break the silence, what was at stake was not only the configuration of a car. It was the integrity of the system. Adami did not speak at an official conference or in a controlled press conference. His testimony was leaked through sources close to paddock. And what he revealed was not only disturbing, but shook Ferrari's operational foundations as rarely in recent history. In his own words, the changes applied to Hamilton SF25 before Saturday in Zandvoort were not requested by him, nor endorsed by any member of the technical team on track. They were executed by a remote unit known as the Central Performance Group. This department, physically located in Maranello, is not part of the staff present in the big prizes. It is a team specialized in advanced simulations, predictive algorithms, and virtual models that, in theory, optimize strategic decisions based on millions of data in real time. But there is a problem. This unit makes decisions without living the Grand Prix, without listening to the direct comments of the pilot, without feeling the wind changes in curve, the evolution of the grip, the ambient temperature, the pressure of the public, or the mood of the pilot. It does so from distance, from silent offices, far from chaos, oil smell, deafening buzzing of the tracks on the track. Adami denounced that this dynamic has been happening since the beginning of the season, but that in the GP of the Nestors crossed a red line. What until now were technical suggestions, this time it became an imposition. His voice was ignored. Hamilton's silenced. The order was direct. Apply the new suspension and differential configuration without objections. And when he asked for explanations, he did not receive an answer. This by itself was already alarming. But there is more. According to the Italian engineer, Maranello's group works under maximum efficiency guidelines, a concept that prioritizes potential performance over real adaptability. That is, the ideal return is sought in the simulated model, although that means that the car becomes unpredictable or uncontrollable in real conditions. What frustrated Adami most was not the technical change itself, but the fact that it was executed without any conversation with the pilot. According to his statement, no Hamilton was informed of the change, nor was he offered the possibility of testing both configurations. It was a unilateral decision, executed while sleeping, and discovered when the engine turned on Saturday morning. This type of decisions has caused an internal fracture. It is no accident that since that day rumors have begun to circulate about possible resignations within the technical team. Veteran engineers accustomed to making decisions based on experience and feeling feel that they are being replaced by lines of code. And the threat is not less. Adami would have directly warned the high controls that if this policy of algorithmic pilot continues, he himself would leave his post. The situation has become unsustainable. The team is divided between two irreconcilable philosophies. One based on human intelligence, instinct, the intuition of the engineer and the pilot who live each curve with the body, and another based on the mathematical coldness of a system that, although efficient in paper, ignores the emotional, psychological, and physical complexity of a real career. And this is not a philosophical debate. It is a conflict with practical consequences. While McLaren and Red Bull optimized their operations with a surgical balance between simulation and track sensations, Ferrari seems to have locked themselves in their glass tower, betting that the numbers are always right. But in Formula One, the numbers do not win championships by themselves. They do. The teams that know how to interpret the data without forgetting that behind the steering wheel there is a human being. And what Adami has revealed is not only a technical failure, but an identity crisis in Ferrari. The question that now resonates in Maranello is one: how much more can this structure resist before collapsing completely? Zandvoort was more than a difficult race for Ferrari. It was a mirror. A clear and brutal reflection of a team that, while aspiring to return to the top of world motoring, continues to drag the same demons that have stopped him for more than a decade. But this time, the scandal did not revolve around a bad tire strategy, an error in boxes, or a poorly communicated equipment order. This time, the problem was structural. It was systemic. He was deeply human, and at the same time, painfully dehumanized. Riccardo Adami's revelation exposed a crack that is not new, but that Ferrari seemed determined to hide. This disconnection between the track team and the remote performance group is not a simple communication failure. It is the proof that there are two Ferrari operating at the same time, and that they are not aligned. One lives in the circuits, feels the pulse of each curve, adapts decisions in real time. The other, in Maranello, prioritizes mathematical models, infinite simulations, and automated decisions that seem to ignore the reality of what happens on race weekends. Internally, this duality has lit a storm. Since the unauthorized changes in Hamilton's car and Adami's words began to circulate, rumors have multiplied. In Maranello's halls there is talk of tension between departments, clashes between track engineers and those responsible for the simulation center, and a toxic atmosphere that was not lived since the last days of the Arrivabene era. Several sources have confirmed that, after the GP of the Netherlands, at least 3 engineers requested private meetings with Frédéric Vasseur to express their frustration with the current chain of command. Others simply have begun to write their renunciation letters. What Adami has publicly exposed internal chaos may have been an act of despair, but also of professional dignity. And it's not alone. Even more worrying is the impact that this crisis is having on Hamilton. The British pilot arrived in Ferrari with a clear project: to build something of his own, contribute his experience to strengthen the structure, and perhaps close his career with a championship dressed in red. But what he has found so far is a divided team, unable to make consistent decisions, and that instead of protecting his most valuable asset, he seems willing to disarm it from within. Sources close to the Hamilton environment indicate that the pilot is deeply frustrated. Not because of the performance of the car, something that he knew would take to consolidate, but for the lack of operational autonomy. Hamilton accepted the challenge of adapting to a new culture, of working with methods other than those he knew in Mercedes. But he did not accept that his criteria, his experience on track, and that of his engineer were systematically ignored. From the paddock you begin to speculate with possible fracture scenarios. Some British media have even suggested that, if the situation does not improve, Hamilton could activate early output clauses in their contract. Others, more cautious, say that the 7-time champion will not abandon so soon, but that his patience has a limit. And this is where I want you to enter. Do you think Hamilton can survive this internal storm and lead a real transformation within Ferrari? Or are we witnessing, in real time, of a new cycle of frustrations dressed in red? Let it know in the comments.